Well, hey, everybody. So glad you're here today, and thanks for being a part of what we're doing to try and learn from this moment that God has given us in COVID. And we're continuing to see these trends in the state of the church. We're even seeing how business owners can learn from churches right now. And one of those trends is acceleration of the adoption of technology, particularly giving technology. And today I want to reintroduce some of you and introduce some of you to my friend Troy Pollock, who's with PushPay. Troy, thanks for making time for us today.
Thanks, William. Always a joy to talk with you. Big fan of you and what you're doing there at Vanderbloemen. So it's an honor to be a part of this conversation.
Yeah, so we've actually had a chance to work with PushPay. My church uses PushPay, so I know all about it. But people may not know. Can you give us the quick and dirty on who you guys are and what you do?
Absolutely. The quick and dirty. So back in 2012, we had this revolutionary idea to bring world-class technology to the faith market. And back in 2012, this was a revolutionary idea to make giving to a church as easy as buying a song on iTunes. Now, I know we're here in 2020, and so that seems like a lifetime ago, but that's really, William, where we started. And it's been an incredible journey ever since. These past 8 years, we've experienced incredible growth. We're partnered with over 10,000 churches across Canada, US, New Zealand, Australia. And our original goal, William, you'll like this. Our original goal back then in 2012 was we wanted to see $1 billion of brand new given to the church, 1 billion with a B. Well, just last week, we processed our 15th billion
Oh
dollar.
my goodness,
So we undercooked that goal just slightly. We
that's
had to
awesome.
reforecast that. And it's not so much about, the dollars, it's about the stories on the other side of the dollars. It's the lives that have been changed, it's the buildings that have been built, it's
Yeah.
the people that have been fed, it's the people that have been clothed, medical debt paid off, people. It's just those types of stories that are truly remarkable. But that's the quick and dirty on
That's
PushPay.
awesome. And what's cool for me is some folks may know I started working with churches in 2008, helping them find their staff, and I founded Vanderbloemen in 2010. So not too far from 2012. And I was introducing a new idea to the church. I remember Adrian and I was at home. I came home from my job at an oil and gas company, and I'd seen them go through a succession using this thing called a search firm. And I thought, we need to try this in church. And I said, hey, babe, I think I'm supposed to quit my job and start something new for churches. And she just looked at me and said, that's because churches love new ideas, right?
With that face, right?
Exactly, with that face. She's a smart lady, bad taste in men, but a smart lady. And
I beg to differ.
we joke about it. She actually gets credit for starting the company because she should have said, I love you. You're such a visionary. Go back to work. And instead she said, let's give it a try. So interestingly, you guys are starting a new idea for churches, not too far apart from when I'm starting a new idea for churches. And we ended up at the front end. I knew one of your former colleagues fairly well. And it was like we were always talking to the same clients because it was these innovative churches that were willing to take a risk and try something new, which almost always meant they were the largest churches. So we were
Right.
working just with larger churches. Well, what we found in the last 6 years, and particularly since COVID, is now the normal size church is saying, hey, wait a minute, now we're ready for a new idea. Are you guys seeing the curve of adoption of a new idea accelerate because of COVID?
Absolutely. A very similar trajectory to what you've experienced there. When we hit the ground in 2012, it's the big churches, the disposable income, right? They can take on risk and try these crazy ideas, whether it's a search form or technology. Well, here we are, COVID happens, right? And that just completely leveled the playing field because in the church faith market, in order to survive, you have to leverage digital giving because you no longer have in-person gatherings. And so the churches and the organizations that were maybe on the back half of that adoption curve that you just talked about, maybe a little bit resistant to change or resistant to adopting this new technology, they actually have to have it. It's incumbent upon them to keep the lights on and the doors figuratively open. So we've seen tremendous growth from that back half of the adoption curve. And the great thing is we're hearing stories from them saying, gosh, I wish we would have adopted this earlier. It's so easy. You mean we can have giving come through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or we can get somebody on a recurring contribution. So when they're away at the mountains or the beach or sick, their contribution can still come through. It's like, yeah, this is what we've been trying to tell you. You know, the CEO of Microsoft recently said this COVID might have brought what was going to take 2 years up to about 2 months in terms of the advancement of technology and how we're all having to adopt it in every asset and facet of life. Well, I was talking to a church leader, well-known ministry down in Atlanta, Georgia, just last week, and he said what was going to take 5 years in the faith market has just been brought up to 5 months. So a lot of churches are scrambling, William, to adopt this, but once they kind of get through that starting gate and get it plugged in, they're seeing tremendous fruit and success from adopting technology.
So like if you can step all the way back to December in your mind, okay, and I know you're not in the weeds with brand new clients all the time, but like what's the size of a church of a typical new client versus now?
So originally our adoption curve was similar to you. You get the bigger ones, the bigger fish, the bigger whales. And then as it kind of takes time, you get more of the middle America church. So we've segmented the church market into 3 segments: small, medium, and large size. Now, this may be something that is irrelevant to your audience, but we call small 0 to 200 in average weekly attendees. Middle-sized church would be from 200 to about 1,100 in average weekly attendees. And then a large church would be 1,100 or more. What we're really seeing is the middle-sized church coming to us. It's the folks that are seeing 250 or 500 people come through their doors on an average week who are adopting the technology. So back to December, we were still kind of going after those top large ones. But coming into March, April, May, it's now the middle-sized churches that are actually ringing us and saying, hey, we thought we were okay. And even the small ones, in fact, we thought we were okay with having in-person plates where you pass the bucket and you drop off your contribution at the little door slot. We actually need technology now. So it's definitely more of the smaller and mid-size churches that are ringing us.
So do any stories come to mind of churches? I mean, you don't have to name a church unless you can, but like any cool stories of like, we just never thought we'd do this, but now we're here and we're here to stay.
Yeah, I mean, it happens all over the place. We'll keep them anonymous right now, but just in fact, there was one in the Northeast. It was a smaller size church and definitely traditional, resistant to change, been around for 80 years plus and have been going well and had their kind of 250 people that were strong and have been handing down succession in the family and so forth, and didn't really think that they needed it. Now their in-person gatherings were shut down, obviously, because of COVID. And so they rang us, and they rang us because they heard good things about us. And sure enough, we have a team that came alongside them and helped them get implemented and set up for success. And they're just raving about, this is so easy. We wish we would have adopted it sooner. And the kicker here is they're getting recurring givers. So it's people not just giving a one-time contribution digitally, it's actually setting up a recurring contribution to come out weekly, monthly, bi-weekly. And that really fits within the behavior of people in 2020, like our mortgage payments, like our rent, like our gym membership, our phone membership, our auto payment, our internet. It's coming out on a monthly basis, whether we think about it or not. And this church particularly has seen a double in recurring giving just in the last couple months, because now this tool is available and somebody can set it and forget it, so to speak. So we hear stories like that all the time. On the higher end of town, the bigger churches that, you know, really have a strong digital strategy in place, they're seeing 10, 15, 20% increase during this time because they're attracting brand new members through their online services.
Yeah, I think what I've seen and heard, so we were kind of in the center. We fell into it, but once we fell into it, we ran with it. We were in the center of helping churches and Christian schools get PPP loans from the government, which are now grants for many of them. And so we've now been able to survey them all and like, what's your giving been like and how's it been? And the common story is March hit and a few donors stepped forward and said, we're going to make a significant contribution to help the church. But then what sustained them once that went away, the big gift, was summer giving that was recurring giving. I'm thinking of your church, the anonymous church in the Northeast. When I moved up to Princeton to go to seminary, I remember being shocked that church would just pretty much shut down in the summer.
Yeah.
I mean, they might have one service and no Sunday school, but not two services. And sometimes the church would just say, see you after Labor Day. And I would imagine there's some great stories of how summer giving has changed as a result of digital giving. Have you got any stats or thoughts or stories that go along with that?
Yeah, I can give you some stats and some stories. I'm on the board at my particular church, and we use PushPay as our giving solution. And we saw a similar trend that you saw right when kind of March, April hit. There was some large donors that stepped up and took responsibility and helped financially contribute at a higher level to keep it going. But then it flatlined and it kind of began to go down. Well, inject the recurring giving through our church that I'm a part of right there. And we've seen about a 5% growth even during summer. Now, the number of households are giving down, but people are giving at a higher level. And that's feasible by just adjusting your recurring giving or setting that up. So I would say at large, the summer slump is no longer a thing so much like you experienced when you were at Princeton. And churches, they've all shut down, to be honest with you, across America, and some are reopening and trying to figure out what that looks like. But the summer slump is almost a misnomer now, because you can still enjoy the mountains with family and the beach with family, but still have that revenue stream coming through, even though people aren't walking through your doors. So yeah, that's a quick little story about the church that I'm a part of. We've seen growth even through the summertime of recurring giving.
That's awesome. Where do you guys see the next wave of adoption? I mean, what are you, as you're looking out over the next 6 months, what are you guys anticipating in terms of how your client base might change or grow or constrict?
So we're really focusing on that middle-sized church. So late last year in December of 2019, William, we just acquired a church management software system. So this is similar to a CRM in the marketplace, because what we saw was this point solution that PushPay is no longer going to be the way of the future. People want an all-in-one solution. They want to be able to check their kids in. They want to be able to offer giving, an app, also have admin dashboards on the back end system. They want to be able to track brand new members. They want to be able to follow up with first-time attendees. So kind of this all-in-one solution. So that was a very strategic move by us, because we're going after that middle-sized church in America that is definitely in need of an all-in-one solution, because that's where it's going. We see that churches are going to continue, right? This is adopting technology in a brand new way. We've invested a lot into combining these two solutions. So now they talk through APIs and through integrations, so that you can track that person that maybe checked in their kids for the very first time and actually follow them along the entire journey to see them become a leader and a giver in your church. We're really focusing on the mobile app. So we build church apps as well too. That's William Vanderbloemen in centric, your branding, your coloring, your audio, your podcast, your videos, because that's how people are engaging with church through this at-home experience right now. So we're really focusing a lot on this customizable, personalized experience for each church, and then the visibility and the data into their people, because it's no longer seeing them eyeball to eyeball every Sunday and asking William how his kids are doing and remember, the soccer game or the softball game. Now you got to do it all through technology, because you don't have the ability to see people in person as much as we used to.
Yeah, well, hopefully that's just for now. We launched a new company this week, christianteams.com, that's kind of a virtual based search, and it's limited to support roles in the church that don't necessarily require as much face-to-face interface. So we're seeing it as well, but I do think, my big theological takeaway from virtual is if virtual really worked, Jesus would have just zoomed it in. Why bother being born in a manger if you could just hit Zoom and get it done that way? But there's something about face-to-face that still matters. And so thankful for the way you guys are stepping in. Who'd have guessed that churches would actually come to like new ideas because of this terrible pandemic. It's almost one of those things that somebody else meant it for evil and God's using it for good. But
Exactly.
thank you, Troy, for the work you and PushPay are doing to help churches thrive during this time. We're seeing, and maybe it's just the churches that applied for PPP, but of all the churches and faith-based organizations that receive PPP money, we interfaced with over 20% of them. And so we got a really good sample size. And they're all saying, giving is actually, most people are saying it's within 90% of where it was this time last year. So a lot of credit for that goes to how God's used you guys. And I thank you for it. So,
Thank you, William. Isn't that surprising? It's
yeah.
fascinating to see, like, we thought doomsday was going to happen when we first got into this, but through the power of digital giving and technology, it's really enabled churches to continue to receive contributions and stay afloat during this time. It just shifted from 50% digital to 50% cash and checks to pretty much 95% now digital. They're seeing all their income come through digital. So thank
Wow.
you. It was an honor to be on this and have this conversation. And thank you for all that you do, William, and your team there.
Thanks, Troy. Thank you all for tuning in. And if you want links to all these things that we've discussed, just go to vandercast.com and enter your email. We'll send you the show notes and a preview of what's coming. And we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.